Howdy tubers, welcome back to the Zach Life. So I got some plumbing to do today, got a bunch of connections to screw together, some poly welding to do. I got one lease. We're going to talk about it later on, maybe have a video out in a couple of weeks, maybe a month or two down the road. I think it's probably one of my least profitable. It makes the least amount of oil for the amount of water I have to move and the amount of overhead and just everything. I think it's probably one of the least profitable leases that I've got, and I'd like to talk about it. I'd like to talk about the profit margin, what it costs to plug wells. Right now there's 4 wells left on this particular lease, and also why, I've had several people ask me, how much money do you make per barrel? And I'm not just going to show you my tax return. I know that's a reasonable question to ask, and it's very difficult to answer. And there's been a couple of people that kind of get pissy about it. You dang sure well know exactly what you make per barrel. And I'd like to use that next video in this lease to describe why a lot of times I don't. It's very, very different in every situation, every well. So in this video, like I said, I got a bunch of connections to screw together, got some plumbing to do. I'd like to talk about my strategy for environmental protection as far as leaks and stuff go. In the oil business, you're going to have leaks. That's just inevitable, but you try to make them as small and as infrequent as possible, to the point that they're not a problem. And this is definitely part of my strategy here. We went to all stainless or brass, some brass, mostly stainless, and composite materials, and everything except the separators, when it leaves the ground until it gets back into the ground, it doesn't contact anything except steel and composite materials. We're not quite done, but we're a long way into that process. This what we're doing today is another big step. Specifically, what we've got here, what we're screwing together, is the set of connections that actually go at the wellhead or at the pumping tee. And so I should probably grab a pumping tee over here just for reference. So this is a pumping tee. It's a used one, obviously. It screws on the tube, and you have the stuffing box here, and this is actually where the output from the well comes from. When we get out there, you'll be able to see this. This is what we'll be screwing into. But what we've got to have is we'll have a nipple. I don't screw this together because it's stainless and galled. We'll have a nipple, a union, a nipple, a check valve. Gotta make sure you put these in the right way. A nipple, a valve, and this is known as a KC. Some people call them king nipples. Anyway, this will all be screwed together, and this is where the poly pipe slips over that carries the fluid onto the separator through the lease. Now, the stainless I love because it's cheap. It lasts forever, but the big problem with it is it's kind of a headache, and it's bad about galding together, meaning when you screw it together, it will not come back apart. The material sort of mixes, when you screw the nipple together. I don't know if that's the right word to mix, but it sort of wads up, and it's not often, you can't get it apart. So to help combat that, I've got a premium grade anti-seize lubricant. This is some kind of a nickel based anti-seize. Okay, so the way I do this is time consuming and a pain, is we'll put a little bit of anti-seize on here. Teflon tape, more anti-seize, and then we'll put anti-seize on the inside threads, and start it together. And I already got it all over me. Okay, this is one setup. I got 5 more to put together. Well, I don't know if y'all can tell where this is going, but well, I bet you probably can, and well, yeah, I am. I am not recommending what I'm fixing to do. It's probably pretty stupid, and if you do try this and get hurt, don't blame me because I told you not to. I got my lathe moved. I don't think I've shown this. I get kind of confused on where videos left off. Started kind of cleaning this building up a little bit. I got the lathe drug over here, and here is the hacksaw thing I got. We'll work on this at a later date, and this line shaft drill press, but that is for another video. So the game plan is I'll put a pipe wrench on here. These valves are a little bit flimsy. If you over tighten this, you'll actually twist this thread off here. This is screwed into here. There's only about 2 or 3 threads. You can see the threads are only a 1/4 inch wide there. There's not much, and we got to be pretty careful. I'll run it real slow, and I will feed this in as it tightens up. We're just using this the end of this chuck here as a steady rest. I don't know what you'd call it, just to keep from, bind from being on it sideways. This stuff is a pain to screw together. Like I say, it tries to gall up and lock up. You'll hear it kind of growl and squeal, and it'll, tighten one thing up and then tighten the next thing up. But that's how I'm going to do it. I can see that just start to move a little bit. Like I said, I don't want to get real rough with the valves, but I do want to snug the rest of this up. For some reason, these checks must be threaded a little bit small, because they don't ever screw very far into them. So we're going to get back on this here and make it up a little more. Checking the valve up. I actually missed it a little bit there. All right, so we're out on this lease. I got 4 wells to plumb in today. It was sunny this morning, and I came out here earlier, about an hour ago, and I got out here, it got kind of cloudy, and it came a downpour, and now the sun's back out, and I have got a migraine. Absolutely terrible. My head's killing me. I can't see. You know how it's actually better now. The migraine deal, and the sun, the brightness is just terrible. So got 4 wells I'm going to plumb in today. We're going to talk about some plumbing. When we get done with this, I'm going to talk about we're going to do a pressure test on these lines. We'll have another one of these conversations right after this. I guess let's just jump out here and do it. I got 4 of these to do. I'll probably just show you 1 or 2. All right, so here we're at this little well. Okay, so I just got you clipped on a polish rod there. Hope the wind didn't too bad. I can tell it's blowing right at the mic. Here's a pumping tee, stuffing box. We got to break this connection out of the pumping tee. Golly. a typical steel nipple. This stuff actually looks nearly new and would have probably run for a decade or more. But we're kind of here. We're trying to make stuff better. You can actually look, I don't know if you can see down in there, there's some pitting under the plastic coat. These are plastic coated nipples. I'll say this isn't, it's a plastic coated hammer union. It's supposed to be better. I kind of think it's worse because I think it causes either electrolysis or something behind the plastic. You'll often have them look perfect and they'll just have a pit that starts here and just comes all the way through it. Here's our set of connections we put together. So the next thing, I've got to slip this poly up over this KC. And these are actually hose KCs. They're designed for a hose that's 2-inch ID. And poly pipe is actually measured in nominal size pipe. So it's the OD is 2 3/8 and the ID is whatever it turns out to be for the wall thickness, which is about 1/900. And so you can sometimes get these on there, but it takes a lot of effort. My head's pounding and we're not going to put out that much effort. So I want to take a torch and heat this, soften the plastic, and it'll make it much easier to slip on here. This line has no valves. It is open back to the flow line. When I put a torch in this, it might go ka-foomf. In fact, I hope it does for the camera. Well, I might have just ruined my torch. I guess it's got a set screw. Anyway, put some heat on it. No, no foam. It is kind of burning. Like so. Then the last thing here, we've got a 2-volt clamp. And the last thing here is we're going to inspect this 1-inch, this is called a bleeder. We're going to inspect the bleeder nipple. It looks to me to be in reasonable good shape. What you see in there is a growth of some kind of a metal. It doesn't appear to be rotted or to be eaten on. All right, so I got 3 of these swapped out. I'll do the 4th one later. I actually went home and took some Advil and set the house a little while. My head's a lot better now. I feel a lot better actually. I'll do the 4th one later. I'm going to try to explain what's going on here to make this make sense. There were 6 wells here in a row. The one we started at is the first one. There's 6 wells that are 300 foot apart from the tank batteries. There was one kind of line of wells that went out that way. This place is a square mile. It also had another flow line that went sort of beside all these wells, but it was a home run that started the tank batteries, sort of went beside these wells, and then went about 6,000 more feet across the pasture, catty corner to the other side, where there's 2 more wells that come all the way across here. Now, I've plugged all the wells in the middle. There's the 2 on the end and the 2 at the front. There's 2 gone in the middle. And so these 2 wells here, I want to plumb these into the flow line that's coming from like 6,000 feet away, and we'll eliminate several hundred feet of this poly line that comes through here, where they were basically 2 ran side by side. I don't know really why it was plumb like that, but it was. You know, there was the one long line, and then, you know, the one line that hooked up to all the wells, and they kind of ran side by side. Anyway, doing that eliminates, you know, like 3, 6, 9, 1,200 feet of poly line, and the less poly line you got, the less flow line you've got to have problems with or a leak. And that's the whole reason for what I'm kind of redoing here. We're changing all these connections out and then eliminating any extra polyline. So, you know, in the oil business, you're going to have leaks. You know, leaks are inevitable. But what you try to do is you try to eliminate as many of them as you can. You try to make them as infrequent as possible and as small as possible. In the old days, there used to be steel lines that went to all this stuff. This is before poly existed. And you know, steel lines, you commonly had leaks. You carried clamps with you, and that was a, you know, sort of a daily occurrence as you fixed leaks. You know, you tried to catch them when they were just a drip or something, you know, and change a connection, change a nipple or whatever. But you had leaks continuously. And what they did in the old days to try to keep from having big environmental disasters is you put check valves in everything. And so you'd have a check valve that went down this line and a check valve that went down this line, and where the next well hooked in, you'd have a check valve that went past that well. So if you had a leak, you know, you had a large catastrophic failure in one of your lines, the whole lease wouldn't pump backwards through the flow lines out that hole. This has definitely also been held over today in the days of polypipe. You know, there's a lot of people still use steel connections and stuff, and you don't want to have, you know, a leak at your, you know, either at a connection somewhere where a lot of people don't poly weld, you know, at a connection out in the trees, or, you know, you have a leak up here at your well. You don't want all the wells to be able to pump back through that leak. And so that's generally the way things are done. I do things much different, and my idea behind it is that especially now, but also before my computer system, you know, we hadn't got there yet. I think this video is going to come out before the computer system stuff does. But I pretty much eliminated all check valves. So if you have a leak anywhere, you drive by the separator, you'll immediately be able to see that the pressure is at 0. And the reason for this is especially out here, you know, there's miles of poly line and injection lines and stuff, and you can't see it all, you know, unless you've got a helicopter and you fly it. There's not roads that go everywhere, and you have the potential to have a leak somewhere and not be able to see it. And if you can't tell that you've got a leak, or you don't know for several days, you know, as you gauge your tanks and your production's off, you could have a small leak that leaks for a long time that makes a really big mess. And so my idea behind this is if you have a leak, you want to have a big leak, and so you can immediately tell, and you shut your lease down, you know, as soon as you find it, and then you fix it. Now, that being said, leaks are fairly uncommon these days, and, you know, I hate to jinx myself. I hadn't really had anything in a good while, and to be honest, in the last decade, I'm going to say more than half, or maybe I'm going to say more than half of the leaks I've had is because of people shooting holes and polylines, hunters and stuff like that. And me as an operator, you know, I can't help that. I can't keep people from shooting holes in things. I can't help vandalism. But with my computer system I'm installing, we'll talk about in videos coming up, one of the things we do is monitor separator pressure. So if there is a hole shot in a line, even if it's 6,000 feet away from the separator, you know, all the fluid's going to go backwards back to that big hole, and the pressure will go to 0. And I'll be able to set up notifications where if the pressure goes, you know, below a certain pressure, it's going to say, hey Zach, you got a leak. And you know, I just immediately shut the lease down and then go to four-wheeler or whatever, find it. That's my plan. That's how I'm trying to change all this and do it moving forward. Is I don't necessarily try to use check valves to make, you know, any leak I would have small. I want it to sort of be big and wide open and easy to spot with my SCADA system, so that I can see it immediately. And you know, if you have a big leak, as I mean large hole, you know, somebody shoots a hole in a poly line, you'll be able to see that pressure fall, and you can shut it down immediately, and you don't have that much fluid loss. So I bet the little iron's about hot. We're going to go out here. I had to cut this flow line, kind of made a mess on the ground. Yeah, not too proud of showing, but I guess you're gonna have to see it. I'm gonna shut the wells off via my phone through the system y'all hadn't got to see yet. We'll shut the wells off that's running over there, take 2 poly clamps and squeeze the poly pipe off, pinch it off, and then we're gonna weld the T in. It just makes a, there's a poly line just makes a loop right back to this well, and there's a T that goes to one right directly that way. Alright, here's where I get wet. There. I didn't quite have it pinched off, I guess. It's kind of in a bind. It's trying to twist down, and I got to sit here for about a minute and hold it till the poly cools off. These things work really good too as handles when you're doing this. So while we're letting that cool, and we'll walk up here and look at this well, this thing hadn't pumped right in a long time. It would run and pump, and of course we just got through doing our electrical system. Got, you know, overhead run, conduit, and ground wires, you know, everything hooked up. I wanted to give it a run. It's had tubing stuck in it. I had a rig over here. We worked on it several days and had to circulate on it to get the tubing out of it. We got it pulled and fixed. It really hadn't made anything, but it hadn't pumped correctly. And I'd like to give it a run. I'll pump it for a few months. If it makes anything, it probably won't, and this will go on my schedule. We'll plug it next year. There's a well right down there that makes about a half a barrel. It's a pretty decent well, doesn't make much water. You know, nobody's getting rich. And then there's the 2 more wells up towards the front we worked on. I'll talk about them. All right, so I'm gonna pull these off. You should be able to hear the fluid go through here. It's going that way to pressure up this line. Relatively uneventful, which is good. You can see that's kind of flat there still, but after a couple of days, actually tomorrow, it'll be almost back round. Okay, so we're back here at our separator. The pressure is basically zero because all of our wells are off. The pressure on this separator, this gauge, you know, it usually runs between maybe 6 and 12 or 15 pounds, somewhere in that range. This is the pressure that will be on the separator and the flow lines all the way back to the wells. There's probably some restriction pushing it this way, but I don't think that it's all that much. So what we're going to do, is get a crescent. So what we're going to do is we're going to shut the valve on the back of this thing. Maybe. Alright. So now we're going to drive to the other side, to the other well. Everything's still off. And we're going to put a pressure gauge in the bleeder of that well and turn it back on and let it pump, and we're basically going to do a pressure test on everything. Okay, got us a 300-pound gauge. I'm going to screw this gauge in right here. Open the bleeder valve. We're currently sitting at about, what is that, 10, 15 pounds? So I should be able to, on my cellular device here, turn on the well. Looky there, looky there. Okay. I really don't know how long this is going to take to pressure up. It may take a little while. I would like to see at least 100 pounds. This poly line is rated at 160. I think the weld connections like we just welded are probably fine to 160 as well. However, there is several of these old style KCs, and they don't have quite as big a knurling, and there's some splices in the middle of this line, and I'm afraid these might blow off at less than that rating, pressure rating. We're not generally nearly that high, but like I say, I'm saying 100, 125 pounds, something like that. Okay, we're at about 125. Of course, it's kind of bouncing. I think we're going to call this good. And okay, so the next thing I got to do is open that valve back there. There's 120 pounds on one side of it and none on this side. This is a sensor for my data acquisition, my SCADA system. I'm going to shut this valve because we'll probably get more than 15 pounds. This is only a 15-pound rated sensor, and I don't want to blow them up. 100 pounds would cause a lot of trouble to this. I hope we don't hurt something. I haven't ever done this on one that's got a line as long as this, but let's see what happens. Kaboom. You can hear this valve starting to open. All right, so I got this little well running. I bet it's not pumped up. It ain't far away though. I got a little leak. Hopefully the pressure comes down. That'll quit leaking. If not, we may have to come back over here with some wrenches and tighten it. It's the valve to here up a little bit. Well, I got this little jewel going. Stuffing box squealing. It's not pumped up yet. Give it a couple of weeks or a month and see if it makes anything. All right, so I'm sitting back over here at this well that had the pressure gauge on it, and the pressure's down to about 40. It's about 5:30. So I came back over here right as I opened the valve. I jumped in my pickup and ran over here, and it still had 100 pounds on it, and I thought something was screwed up. I went to kind of drive around trying to figure out what was going on, and I came back over here. It's down to 80. You know, there's fluid flowing in the separator, but there's no pressure at the other end. And anyway, I've never really experienced that phenomenon, but it's kind of interesting, that line being over a mile long. And it's, you got to remember too, it's got gas pockets on it. It's not just a liquid, you know, it's a compressible, you know, a significant portion of it's gas and bubbles. And anyway, I guess it just took that long to just relieve all the pressure off the line. It's been close to 2 hours, and it's back to 30 pounds or whatever. I guess that's it. I appreciate y'all watching. My day is over. I'm going home. I'm getting hungry. Like I say, the next video, I don't know if it'll actually be the next one, but shortly I'm going to talk about that lease, talk about how how different wells that make different amounts of oil, how their profit margin varies to such an extreme amount. Anyway, save that for then. Appreciate you watching. Like, share, subscribe if you want to. By the way, I've had a lot of people ask me, God, this road's terrible. See if we can drift this corner here. Woo! I lost it there. I've had a lot of people ask me about supporting me. They want me to set up a Patreon account. To be quite frank, I don't want your money. I make my living in the oil field. The situation I'm in, I'm not trying to quit my job to be a full-time YouTuber. I love what I do. My job is my job, and me making more money on YouTube will not benefit my YouTube career. It's limited by my job, and YouTube's not going to replace what I do for a living. I don't want it to. But for those of you that want to support me, the best thing you can do is comment, like, share, hit the subscribe button. I think that one of the best things to do is to leave comments, even if it's not something that's an in-depth question. Say thanks or whatever. I read every single one of them. It usually takes me a little while to get back to them. There's a lot of them that there's a lot of people that ask a lot of in-depth questions, and those take a little while. They take up a lot of time. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying it sometimes takes me a while to get back to people. But as far as reading them, I look at it, it seems like every few hours on my phone. And when you comment, I see it within the day anyway. And I do read every single one of them. Anyway, done rattling. Appreciate you watching. I will catch you on the next one.